My name is Ahmad E. Abdul Majid from BSHM 3D, and this is my video about understanding the psychology of crisis management. I did my research on doctors and scientists and many other people on trying to know what is the true meaning behind the psychology of crisis. Based on some of what I have already saw and read about, they say that people under crisis go into panic lapses, and panic they start to think that they are helping each other by giving communication, and they think that they are solving the situation, but it's actually not, and it's getting more messy. In other words, it gets worse the more they panic, and that's a thing that we can't avoid under crisis, such in earthquakes, tsunamis, and many other etc. In a crisis, you cannot see through, and you cannot predict what will happen and when will it happen, and when it happens, you cannot predict what can happen next. That's the main thing about the crisis, and it's hard to overcome. The next thing I also saw is that people tend to think a lot when there is something happening. It's the nature of humankind to think a lot on different varieties of crisis and situations. There's a study proven that when the person thinks a lot, his brain starts to tangle all his ideas together, and he ends up doing things that he is not sure about. Things that can end up, things that can make things go worse, and so whatever. And that can cause a lot more problem in the crisis, and it can tend to bad result. Another example of crisis is the expanding type of crisis. A good example for expanding type of crisis is the COVID-19, because it's spreading through the acknowledgement on what can happen on that kind of crisis. The best thing to do in the crisis is to start listening, avoid blaming, and of course, learn on what mistakes you did on a crisis that happened, so you can avoid it in the next time you might encounter a crisis. And of course, you have to give a good example of being a leader in such type of situations. That's my video about understanding the psychology of crisis management.